Hi, everybody. We're back. It's episode 71 of the Alfie Whattam Technology Podcast. As always, we are sponsored by welovealpha.com. If you're an engineering manager, if you're a CTO, if you work in recruitment and you're looking to grow your software development team, then to hire the best, the superstar software engineers, to find your next hire, go to welovealpha.com today. Today on the podcast, we are joined by Omar. Omar, thanks for joining us. Could you just give us a little bit of an intro, please, into who you are and what you do?
Hey Alfie, thanks for having me on the podcast. This is the first podcast I've been on, so super excited. I will try not to act like a noob, but basically a bit of a background on me. I work at the University of Glasgow as a software engineering manager. I've done for the last 3 years, and what my work involves is supervising software engineering, computing science students in building applications of all sorts for people in the university and outside the university.
Awesome. So I've got you on today to talk about some things happening in the world of kind of EdTech and learning and obviously your area in Scotland and that sort of thing. So thanks for taking the time to help out with these articles. So without further ado, let's go straight into it. So Scotland is facing a digital skills gap as vacancies continue to rise. So demand for digital skills in Scotland, it's highlighted by new research revealing that 1 in 10, so 13% of all vacancies now in Scotland is in the tech sector. Only London and Northern Ireland have a digital jobs vacancy rate higher than this. So obviously Scotland on the rise. And since January, 20,000 tech roles advertised north of the border, with average salaries hitting over 50k now. You obviously understand this area well, Omar. You live in Scotland. What's your view on what's kind of happening in Scotland with the tech rise in demand?
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, even though only London and there was another place that was ahead of Scotland in terms of the demand, I think this is a global phenomena, right? There's a massive increase for tech talent, and there's a shortage of people that can fill those roles. And I think it's fueled by just these massive tech giants that we're seeing pulling in all sorts of crazy revenue and profit figures. And people are seeing the lifestyle of people that work there as well. And there's a bit of envy and like positive envy. And they're able to access so much that the traditional economy has been slow to catch up with, such as working from home, the ability to be flexible with how you work and where you work. And so there's a demand on both sides, I think, for coming into tech, in that the companies are digitally transforming, and that those companies that have not kept up to speed with the changes in the economy and whatnot have found that they've fallen back. So companies are wanting to accelerate their digital transformation on the one hand, and then workers are wanting to switch careers and get into this sector because the benefits are just clear for everyone to see. And I think the pandemic just really accelerated that massively.
Yeah, COVID was like the big thing, right? In terms of a lot of people leaving London and going to other areas where the cost of living is not crazy, because they can work remotely, they can get the same salary a lot of the time, and they're not paying ridiculous amounts of prices for a cup of coffee and that sort of thing. Have you seen that as somebody that's a tech leader in Scotland? Have you seen kind of post-COVID more and more people kind of come to your neck of the woods?
Oh, definitely. I was saying to someone in a conversation that traditionally software engineering and computing science was rightfully stereotyped to be a certain type of person would go into this field, usually male and usually white and usually somewhat geeky or socially how do you say this in a nice way, but you know what I mean, just socially probably not sophisticated. Is that the right word? I don't know. Introverted, right? Their soft skills needed work basically. But now you've got like all sorts of people in tech, and I think that is amazing because with a certain demographic, you're going to get a certain type of product or software or outlook or bias in these algorithms, and we're seeing that with AI algorithms that are biased in a certain way. And that is naturally going to happen when the people working on those products and services are from a small demographic. What I think is cool now is that everyone's getting in,
Yeah.
all backgrounds, all genders, all kind of like abilities to contribute. And I think that is brilliant because then it means that the world that's being created, this digital world, is just so much more interesting
Mm.
culturally. And yeah, so there has been a massive change. And I think that's welcome, and it should increase because if we want an interesting digital world, we want everyone in it. Otherwise, it's going to be like monocultured or
Yeah.
boring.
Yeah, yeah, man. You need diversity of thought, diversity of opinion, different
Yeah,
backgrounds, different genders, different ethnicities. I think one thing which is
yeah,
interesting about this article is it's 13% now in Scotland, but I think if we both
yeah.
agreed in a year from now, that's going to be 15% or 20%, and it's only going to continue to rise.
Right.
And that's just because of the amount of other sectors that technology is just continuing to replace and replace. Like, will you need receptionists in
Yeah,
a couple of years, or will you have an iPad screen in
right.
an office which has a virtual assistant chatbot on which can do that role? Would you need
Yeah.
an accountant when you have an accounting software which can automatically do a large part of that position? So I think that 13% is only
Mhm.
probably going to increase, right?
Definitely. I was saying to someone the other day that digital or software is not a vertical industry. It's not a vertical sector. It cuts across every sector, be it health, education, entertainment, whatever. It's horizontal. And I think what's going to really happen, Alfie, as we go forward, these numbers are going to increase, but we're going to get to a point where every worker is a tech worker. Like you'll have to have some level of digital literacy to do your job. Otherwise, it will almost be like reading and writing.
Mm.
Every job will involve tech, and we'll stop referring to it as a tech worker. It will just be it's just part of your skill set to know how to interact with these technologies,
Yeah, no, I see
which is
that
exciting.
100%, man. I don't think of myself as running a recruitment agency. I run a technology company, which
Yeah,
recruitment's part of it, but it's a tech company at the end of the day. I mean, it's about data, it's about relationships and people, but it's equally as about the algorithms and the AI that powers that machine and that sort of thing. Yeah,
yeah.
I
No,
suppose.
for sure. I think that's only going to spread,
Yeah,
whether it's recruitment, medicine, health. Every industry is a tech industry now,
yeah. It's the other
which
word
is
tech. It's
great if you're
not
already
health.
in
It's
tech.
health tech. It's not ed. It's ed tech. Okay, cool.
Right, fintech, edtech, health tech.
I suppose staying on the topic of edtech, Google are back in the news at the moment. So Google have pledged 20 million US dollars to expand computer science education in the US. So they've got
Yeah,
a number of different projects they're investing in. They've announced new commitments to expand comp sci education
mm,
among communities specifically that are underrepresented in the field, which is what we were
yeah,
talking about a second ago. So the company expects to
hmm
improve education access for more than 11 million American students. The CEO,
hmm
Sundar Pichai, said, if we do not get this right, the gaps that exist today will be exacerbated, and technology will end up
yeah,
playing such a big role in the future. And that's a fundamental reason that we do it. Obviously, this goes back to what you were
hmm
literally just saying a second ago, Omar. But what do you think about
yeah.
Google's commitment to do this sort of thing?
I think there's an ultra, there's a good aspect from why they're doing it, but also think it's the self-motivated, which is good in that they need more workers in the tech space. And if we've already got a shortage, then what's going to happen a generation down the line? These companies just won't have the people power to continue doing what they're doing. So it's good in that their self-interest is aligned with these communities getting attention from Google and getting funding from Google to change that potential future where you don't have that supply of tech talent. And I think Google and all these other companies are having to reach out beyond the traditional places where they would go, the traditional universities or whatnot,
Yeah.
and they're having to broaden their reach just because the scale of the amount of people that we need in tech is just so much bigger than those traditional centers are able to supply. So it's great. It's great news for that generation, that community, and I think this is going to just be a phenomena that we see all over the world.
Yeah.
Places and communities that traditionally have never had the access. or the attention from these companies are going to start getting it. Which keys into another thing in that talent is like geographically blind.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Talk a little bit more about this in that, you know, talent in today's world could be anywhere in the world. It could be halfway across the world. And so you have to, as a company like Google, you have to tap into those places where talent might emerge because I mean, there's this idea of, a 10x engineer versus a 1x engineer. Or just there's different terms of there's differences in productivity and whatnot. So Google tapping into this community is great for the community, but it's also massively great for Google as well.
For the people listening that haven't heard of the idea of a 10x engineer before, could you just describe what that sort of means in simple terms?
Yeah, there's a positive and not so interesting or negative aspect to this idea in that some people talk about this rock star. I hate that word,
The unicorn.
engineer, or
Yeah.
the unicorn, or the ninja, which
Yeah.
is just so cringe, right? But the idea is that there's a spectrum of ability and productivity in the developer community, and you might get two people with the exact same skill set, maybe the exact same experience, but their ability to problem solve and execute and deliver are radically different. And that's where the 10x comes from, in that there are people out there who are able to do 10 times the work of other people. And it all goes back to this being a knowledge based
Yeah.
industry, in that it's not physical labor. It's not that one person is able to do 10 times the physical work. It's cognition and using different techniques to find smart solutions to things. So yeah, 10x engineers are highly valued,
Absolutely.
and yeah, it's
There's
good.
certainly a lot of truth to it, though. I'm not sure if you've heard of like the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, but the concept is
Yeah,
that in basically anything in life, like 20% of the inputs will lead to 80% of the outputs. And I
yeah,
literally saw it the other day in like my mini garden, like 20% of the pea pods led to 80% of the peas, and 20% of the developers will do 80% of the code and the actual work and that sort of thing. And that applies to basically anything, 20% of companies make 80% of the money and so on and so
yeah.
forth. And that's just another way of looking at like a 10x engineer there, basically, right?
Yeah. The Pareto principle is famous, and I think it's an excellent example. And I think it all comes down to leverage. And
Yeah.
if you visualize that idea of trying to lift something really heavy, the closer you are to it, there's a leverage point that's optimal, where you need to apply the minimum amount of force to have an impact on that object, whatever it is. And it's finding that leverage point. And I think some people have like an intuitive sense of where it is, but mostly it just comes from experience, and you can build it up, that intuition, into how to execute on a problem in the most efficient way using the least amount of resources. So I think everyone can become a 10x engineer. It's not like some sort of like elite
Yeah.
uh, group. If you want to, you just need to kind of work at it, and you can be that person.
Absolutely. Okay, cool. That leads us nicely onto our final article, which is still in the world of EdTech. So EdTech companies are breaking the UK data laws, privacy campaigners claim. So an investigation by
Mm-hmm.
children's digital rights charity highlights the policies of Google Classroom and ClassDojo. So EdTech companies are apparently breaking UK data laws, leaving children's data vulnerable to commercial exploitation. Privacy campaigners
Mm-hmm.
claim as free remote learning software that was adopted by schools in the pandemic comes under increased scrutiny. An investigation by
Mm-hmm.
children's digital rights charity Five Rights is being presented to the Information Commissioner's Office, the ICO, and the Department for Education on Wednesday, highlighting the policies of popular EdTech products, Google Classroom and ClassDojo, among others. And basically, the research conducted an experiment tracking how schools, how children interacted with the app, revealing that data
Mm-hmm.
was tracked by third parties when Google, when the user clicks on the external links, and the data can be used to infer preferences and serve personalized advertising to obviously sell products. So what do
Mm-hmm.
you make of all of this, Omar?
I think it's great that these tech companies come under the scrutiny that they do.
Yeah.
I think there is a fine line though in how much regulation should we have, and
Yeah.
how much freedom should there be so that they can continue to innovate, right? You don't want to like strangle them so much with regulation that they're not able to innovate, because if they're not able to innovate in the States or the UK or Europe, other parts of the world are not going to have that same amount of regulation, and they will then like overtake us in terms of innovating on products that we just don't have the ability to do that. So I really think it's a tricky line, but for sure, these companies do need to come under close scrutiny for the data that they do collect. I think a lot of people just aren't aware of what's going on when they click a link, or they accept the terms and conditions for some website or software. Like a parent who's trying to get their child some sort of education, especially during again the pandemic when schools shut down, people were scrambling to find some sort of like solution. People were using Google Classroom and whatnot, and any solution was this acceptable,
Mm.
and no one was reading the fine print. And if there were, people behind the scenes that were like harvesting this data, then no one was really noticing it. And it's only now that this is coming to light. So I do support these privacy organizations and whatnot that keep the spotlight on what's happening with our data. I think it's important that people are more protective of their data. So fully supportive of GDPR, all this kind of new regulation is good. Yeah, people should just I suppose value data
Mm.
and privacy as much as they do in the real world, and that you wouldn't allow a company to install a CCTV camera in your house. Like,
No.
some people say, "Well, I've got nothing to hide." Well, that's not the point. It's
Mm.
not about, you having nothing to hide. It's about just your right to privacy,
Yeah.
uh, and just extending that understanding online is important. So this is all good.
It's very hard to reverse privacy rights once a company, a big tech company, gets permission to, sell your data or watch you on your webcam when you don't know about it. It's very hard to then reverse
Yeah,
that decision. Power doesn't get given away; it only continues to be controlled. But it's interesting
yeah,
what you said about data, because like 10 years ago, nobody would have known how valuable data has become. But data is arguably one of the most important kind of commodities, in the world from a financial
yeah,
perspective. I mean, if you're not paying for a product, then you are the product. Then your data, how you use it, what your preferences are, that's going to be sold to advertisers, and they're going to use that to try
yeah.
and sell you products which they think could be a good fit. But nobody could see that coming, right? That was it was so strange to see that's now one of the big things in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost cliche now to say data is the new oil, but it is.
Yeah,
It's what powers the global economy. And people need to be a bit more, I don't know if this again the right word, stingy with
sure.
their data. Like it's their data, and it shouldn't just be freely available to aggregate and then retarget people as companies see fit. There should be accountability, transparency
Mm.
about what they're doing with your data. But you're right in that if a company does encroach on data and privacy, it's very easy to backtrack, because that by that point the person has, say, invested in the network. So say it's a social network, they've traded their data in exchange for being able to communicate easily with friends and family, and then they find out some sort of data privacy thing, and they're like, well, what am I supposed to do now? My social network. It's almost like the
Yeah,
trap,
yeah, yeah.
and companies need to make it. I don't know if companies will make it. Then they have to be made to make it easy for people to come back out of those networks. So data interoperability, being able to move your data from one provider to another through standards, and it's only governments and these kind of organizations that are going to make that a reality, because the companies in and of themselves, they find a competitive advantage in having these differences and locking people in.
Yeah.
So yeah, just as people are concerned about the climate and all these other issues, data and privacy need to be up there, and I think they are. People are clued in now and aware of what's going on, and there's a lot of attention on it.
Oh man, yeah,
especially.
more than ever
Yeah,
before, right? It's now it's people just didn't care a couple of years ago, but after Cambridge Analytica, after that scandal, after
Snowden.
the movie, the Social Dilemma. I'm not sure if you've seen that, the documentary,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, after those sorts of things, it's really put it into the spotlight.
yeah. Plus Edward Snowden, the massive
Yes,
thing
man. Yeah,
that he exposed. That was, and there's a movie on that
that's a
as well. But
great movie,
what
great movie.
brilliant movie, right? But there's there's more attention on this now. People are willing to speak up, and they're more aware of the consequences of just freely giving these companies all their data. So it's good and positive, but yeah, the spotlight needs to continue to stay on these companies, but
Yes.
with the hind with the back of the mind, thought also of not suffocating them so that they can't innovate.
Yeah.
Fine line there.
Yes, fine line. It's a difficult one to balance, but cool. Well, Omar, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's been good to get your opinions and to get your perspective on what's happening in your world, in EdTech, in your
Yeah,
sector, in your location, in your market, in your industry. So thanks very much, mate. Be good to get you back on in a few months. It'd be interesting to see
yeah,
what else you got to talk about after what's else happening in the world. But I just want to thank everybody again for watching. Make sure that you're subscribed on Spotify if you're not already. But new episodes coming out almost daily at the moment. And once again, if you're looking to hire software engineers, welovealpha.com is the place where you need to go. So thanks for watching. Thanks, Omar, and see you all next time.
take care. Thanks.